invite, and then you know, hopefully most of them will say yes. And then if Tori, you'd be willing to take the lead in finding a time when we could all get everybody together. And good luck with 100%, but you know, do the best we can.
Right.
I think that's pretty much it.
So Tony, and maybe let's, because the two people that I had with my name attached to them, they're not on your last email with the names of people you're going to invite. So maybe that's something we should go over and make sure we have everyone.
Yeah. Let me get the list out. I think I just opened it. Well, okay, here's what I've got. Share. That's it.
Okay.
So the last two are from Oregon Institute of Technology, and I should mention that I have also been pursuing the question of having effective people doing drug abuse treatment. Now, that's not an area that I am particularly expertise in, but I'm aware of a body of literature that's pretty extensive in behavior analysis community, showing the value of what's been called the prize bowl. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
Okay. Basically, what it involves is the use of random rewards for people for doing the things in a drug abuse treatment program. So it started off with just focusing on your analysis and, you know, you're drug clean, and so you get a prize. You get to dip into the prize bowl. Well, the prize bowl had rewards that might be just say good job to maybe one big reward of maybe $25 and a lot of ones in between. And there's some evidence that random rewards are actually more effective than simply the same reward every time. But in any case, they found that people were more likely to have to pass their urinalysis tests, but they also started doing it for, you know, somebody would say that they were going to make at least 3 attempts to find a job in the next week. You know, and if they complied with that, you know, they'd get extra rewards. So there's actually quite a bit of literature on it, and I can actually, maybe Tori, I should send it to you because I just sent it to a behavior analyst in Alaska who wants to get started on this.
Lawrence Caldera Sr.
So I just got a notice about a bad connection. Can you guys hear me?
Can, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. But part of what's displayed is blacked out on my screen, but I can attempt to. Okay, yes, okay, okay. Jessica had a question, and then send it to me, Tony, and I'll display it.
Okay.
Oh, it wasn't so much a question as I had never heard it referred to as a prize bowl, but what you're describing, Tony, is contingency management or voucher-based contingency management, and that I was familiar with.
Yeah.
I know Nancy Petrie's done quite a bit of research on that, and there's a whole wealth of research on that approach that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and so there are at least 3 training programs that train behavior analysts. And behavior analysts are people who are mostly trained to work with kids with developmental disabilities. But many of them are trying to get beyond that. And this work on the random rewards is work done by behavior analysts. So many of them are familiar with it. But what I'd like to do, and again, this goes well beyond the family interventions, but I think we should take this to the whole committee, but I want to tell you about it. I think that there should be an effort to get more people who have the skills as behavior analysts to make sure that they have the training and the credentials to provide treatment for substance use disorders, because there's a huge shortage of people doing that work. And these are people who are really quite skilled. I work with a lot of them on a lot of different projects. So anyway, that's a diversion, but since you let me do it, I told you all about it. And I'll send you some papers on it. So Pam, do you want to give me the names of the
Yes.
people?
So I'm looking at January 10th, an agenda for this group. And the names that I don't see showing up are, well, Steve Allen with Options Counseling. Is Liz Scouron?
No, actually, Liz Scouron is on the list.
Okay.
Because she's one of the people the family intervention researchers.
Okay. Okay.
And I can show you that list as well. It's got Marion Forgotch on it, Liz Scouron, Carol Metzler, Beth Stormshack,
Okay.
Patty Chamberlain, and Holly Waldron.
Okay. The other name, Lori Theodoro. Theo. It's TheoDorou with OHA.
Okay. I'm sorry. And what is her first name?
Lori, Laurie. And I can.
Is that spelled right?
Yeah, that's how it's spelled. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Do you have functional family therapy on there? Holly W.
Waldron. Yeah. She's an old friend.
Okay.
She's married to one of my closest friends, actually.
All right. Lutheran Family Services. Do you have that on there? Jordan.
Yeah,
Robinson?
That's Jordan Robinson.
Yep. Okay. Generation PMTO, Marion Forgotch.
Got her.
Okay. I think that's it.
Okay. Good. So that ends up being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Do you think we could have a productive 90 meeting with that? Oh, I didn't count the members of this work group, but I suppose we're there listening, so that's not quite as much of a strain on the time. Think that'll work? Well, I mean, we also have some people who can't make it, but we certainly want the people from OHA and OPEC and some of the researchers. I don't know if we'll get all of them.
I mean, I think, reading what you drafted, I think people will understand the importance of showing up if they can, or to make it happen. If not, I mean, maybe in the email we just say, we will let you know what comes of this, but.
Yeah. So we're going to record the meeting, right? Is that okay? And then, Tori, you often take notes. I mean, there may be some places where we want to put a page up and, display what we're hearing. But I think that once we've had this meeting, that we should have, our next meeting should be focused on what would be the outline of a set of recommendations with respect to family interventions. And I think of that as we're going to write a report and it's going to have these recommendations, but the recommendations are going to come from what we've studied and what we get, from this meeting. Mm-hmm. And these are all people who will respond to whatever recommendations we draft. So I see, several iterations to get to this, but I think we're really pointing toward a set of recommendations that would be taken to the legislature. I mean, obviously they have to go to this prevention subcommittee. They have to go to the commission. There's a democratic process involved in all of this, but hopefully we can get, all of these people to come together around a shared view of what's needed. I had a very useful conversation with Reginald Richardson last week, and after I got off, I realized that there's one kind of expertise that I don't think we have on the commission, and that's a lobbyist. I think Jill Gray could be, the main person could inform us on that. But I think as we go in this direction, we should be discussing not only what the recommendations might be, but what it would take for those to be well received by the legislature. Tori, do you have thoughts about that?
I agree with you that we are lacking that expertise on the commission, and it would be helpful for us to, once we generate these really great ideas, implementable ideas, to have a strategy by which to, get the ear of the legislators would be important. I agree.
Well, and I think what a lobbyist is going to tell us is you better show up at the legislature with a whole bunch of diverse organizations saying this is really what we need. Mm-hmm. Well, we're talking to a lot of them that have a stake in this, but there are probably other groups. I mean, one would be families that have benefited from this. And in fact, we have, I think the last time we met, we sort of brainstormed what kinds of questions we would want to ask. And I think we should check that and see if we have, do you have some people which would be, great stories about how this works, because empirical evidence has very little impact on influencing people. Stories work. So.
Mm-hmm. Very true. I don't know if this is the time, but I have a few questions about the questions. Are these some of the questions that'll be asked in the meeting? Okay.
You have them in front of you?
Yeah, from what's displayed. Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, is this what you have? This is what we came up with, I think, in our last meeting.
Okay. Okay.
Is this what you had in mind?
Yes, I just didn't know at the I don't know if this is one of your questions or not. It says youth development and what do families learn about family programs? I'm not sure what that means.
Where is that?
That's between the two ones. You have Early Learning Council up more. Oh, okay. Where it says goals of this meeting, which is number 1 under that. Do you see it now?
Yes, help the commission develop recommendations that would increase the reach and impact of family interventions. Yeah.
That makes sense, but I didn't understand under that we have Early Learning Council, kind of get that, youth development.
Somebody brought up the Early Learning Council, well, because they have hubs, and right. Those hubs are to some extent the same organization as the OPEC hubs, but to some extent are not. And the Early Learning Council has a stake in good family intervention. So I think that was, so maybe that's saying we should have somebody from the Early Learning Council.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up. let me, oh, well, this is revealing things that should have been on my to-do list that I didn't do. Hey, well, let's just get rid of that. Huh? Somebody was talking about a youth development entity in the state. But I think that what I need to do is I will go to, I'm going to put a couple of these on my to-do list.
Okay.
And what the two I'm going to put on there are, if I can find my to-do list. Add to the people that are. I'll follow up talking to Jay Rosenblum, who's a pediatrician, about the person he referred me to, who is, I think, the head of the Oregon Academy of Pediatrics. And then the other one is Early Learning Council. And I will ask Katrina Mosley, who's our contact at ODE.
Okay.
Is that, I'm glad you brought that up.
So when you say youth development, are you speaking of the state agency youth development division?
I think, yes, I think that was what it wasn't me that brought it up. These are just my notes, but yes, I think that's the.
Well, I have the director's name. I will email you his contact information.
Well, actually, would you be willing to just contact that person and say, you know, are you doing anything in the way of family intervention? Should you be, do you have a stake in wanting family interventions?
Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I have a question because the Lori Theodoro, who we just added to the list. So she is Health Systems Division, Child and Family Behavioral Health. Is that a question we want to ask her, or do we know, in fact, she does have the family?
Well, I think, just to be efficient, I think we should just send out the invitation and include her on it.
Okay. Okay.
And she'll tell us, you know, if she thinks she's relevant.
Yeah.
And I think that she is dealing with the part of all the funds that flow from OHA to the counties. We had been concentrating on things that have more, I think Tatiana gave us all of the funding streams that she thought were relevant, but then somebody said, I think she said that in addition to it, there's all this, you know, early childhood, the nurse-family partnership and so on, and that's all relevant to prevention, which it is. So, I mean, you know, I suppose we could ask these people if there are other people that should be involved, but I will tell you, I have a meeting tomorrow on health inequities and health disparities. It's a national meeting where we're pulled together about 20 people. And I'm really worried that 20 important people won't get a chance to talk in a 2-hour meeting. So, you know, I don't think we have to be, I don't think we have to have everybody in the room, because we're going to reach out to, you know, these people afterward. So this isn't their last chance to get a word in. So.
Tony, the Oregon Academy of Pediatrics.
Yeah.
Is that the group that supports all the pediatricians in the state?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's just my screen, but the visual is blacked out. Oh, there we go. Now I can see it.
That's
The other
strange.
thing to be noted while we're all together, I know we added Steve Allen to the list, but Pam spoke at length about the due diligence she went through to try to connect with him and was not able to. So I don't know if an email has been uncovered, because I know, Pam, you said you had to find him on LinkedIn.
And I can call and ask for his email and see if they give it to me. It seemed very gatekeepery to me, but whatever. I can ask again.
Okay.
Well, I
And
can
because-
remember when we were driving to Cottage Grove together in his beat up Toyota Corolla. This is like 20 years ago. And he was just starting with options and so on, which they really built into something. But damn it, he better answer your call. So.
Well, I'll try again. I also reached out on LinkedIn.
Oh,
Just,
okay.
you know, a backdoor.
Okay, so what else do we need to talk about?
Quick question. Do you know what the difference is between Oregon Pediatric Society and the group you're talking to?
No, I haven't heard of that group.
Okay. I'm sure when you speak to your friend, I mean, maybe ask that, you know, what's the main association that is?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it's the Oregon Academy, which is not to say that the one you named isn't a group we should include, but my wife's cousin used to be president of the Oregon Academy, and his son-in-law is Jay Rosenblum, though he divorced my wife's cousin's daughter, you know, just to add a little interest to the discussion. So.
Yeah, because when I was going through the list, the Oregon Pediatric Society is a chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Well, then maybe they've changed the name, but I was pretty sure it was the Oregon Academy of Pediatrics. So.
Okay, because I have that executive director's name.
And what is it?
It is Julie Schatz, SCHO. You have it?
I think so. SCHOTZ.
SCHOLZ as in zebra.
Holtz.
And I will put her her email.
Okay. Good.
There's her email in the chat thing.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm noticing quite a few of our questions are metric based. They would have to know numbers, is what I mean when I say metric based. And I think then we should, if we want them to be able to answer that, we may want to send these questions out ahead of time to give them an opportunity to gather the data.
Okay.
Because quite a few of them, like I said, are data rich.
Yeah, you're right. I think very often the answer is going to be, I don't know, but I think that points to the need to actually have the data. So.
Definitely.
Okay.
And I would also like to add it as one of the first questions is, so we have how well are we reaching families? But I want to know, how do families even learn about their program? Are they referral based, or they have commercials? Like how do families learn of their, that they are out there?
Okay.
I think that's one of the big ones. Like,
Right.
Mhm. Okay.
can I also ask, and this could be getting into the weeds when, so number 3B, how are we reaching families in need? Do we need to define that? So that we understand what they're looking for when they're looking for clients or families that do need help?
It's a good question.
Okay.
Because to know how well you're reaching families in need, you got to know how big the need is to then know how well you are filling that need.
Well, and in fact, I mean, I have this kid and he's driving me crazy. He's become really aggressive and so on. Well, okay, yes, come on in. But we need to reach families before those problems develop, which is, risk factors.
Yes.
And you can pretty much bet that a family that's homeless is in need. You can pretty much bet that a poor family is more likely to be in need. But so we'll have a discussion about that.
And that's why I think it's really important, for example, to have the pediatric group in there, because I mean, need is a very, again, I would argue, because I'm a person in recovery, my family is high risk for especially substance use disorders.
I will send you a paper on that was designed to encourage the adoption of family interventions by pediatricians, and it lines up very much with what you're saying. You won't be surprised. Probably won't learn much either, but just to know that other people are thinking about this.
Well, and again, and I may have shared this, but I've been in recovery for 26 years and I have never been asked about recovery. And I share it with every doctor, pediatricians, and I get blood pressure, thyroid, blah, blah, blah for those risks, but no one ever says, Pam, how's recovery? Do you have, blah, blah, blah. No one asks. Mm-hmm. And that's not right.
Well, when you say that, I find myself thinking that there's probably some research on what a protocol would be, because physicians have gotten better at screening for things. They're much more likely to screen for tobacco use than they used to be. Mm-hmm. We helped set that system up at Kaiser, but yeah, it would be useful to know what the screening measures are for people in recovery, if in fact somebody's done research on that.
Definitely.
I'll look into that. Yeah.
So I like to sometimes start with the end in mind. And so thinking again on that question 3B, and I don't know what's going on my computer, but the black thing. Okay, thank you. So with the, so let's say with 3B, and you push back if this is not, if my understanding is off, but let's say an answer to that question, let's say a well-informed organization, when you say how well are you reaching families in need, they say, well, I know from my community's population, 30% of our population is in need, and we reach 1%. What would we do with that information? A, is that if those were their numbers, is that the information you're asking for? And B, what would we do with that information?
Well, I would argue that every community needs to have that information, and I would be absolutely flabbergasted if anyone had anything like a precise answer to either the numerator or denominator in that question. They will be able to tell us how many families they're reaching. And then you get into the question of, well, how would you estimate the proportion of families who are in need? So, I mean, you actually, you know, if we had an epidemiologist on staff, we could begin to get at that. For example, you could look at the risk of, let's just stick with child and adolescent substance use. Mm-hmm. What are the risk factors for that? Well, one of them is high levels of coercion and conflict in the family. Another one is poverty. A third one is related to the first, and that's child abuse and neglect. Those are all risk factors, and you could actually get reasonable estimates of the proportion of families mm-hmm. in a community that would meet those criteria. And in fact, actually, as I say that, I think it might be relevant for the writing of recommendations to give some kind of estimate of what proportion of the population is likely to be in need, admitting that the confidence intervals for this are quite broad. So there we starting to get at the denominator, and then the local groups can probably tell us what the numerator is. We reached 100 families last year in Yamhill County or something like that.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is, I think you said you wanted the meeting to be a 90-minute meeting, and so and with that number of participants, what are those we have?
Well, it's funny in this age of pandemic and Zoom, all my meetings are an hour or 90 minutes, right? But if I were going to go to a meeting in Salem about a family, of this sort, I suspect we would certainly make this more than a 2-hour meeting. Mm-hmm. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But I hesitate to ask for that much time from people. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I think there's two issues, and then I'm going to stop talking and let other people, because as a facilitator, the optimal group size, just from research and training as a facilitator, is 10 plus minus 2. That's your optimal, and we're almost double that. So keeping that in mind, so we have the amount of time, but we also have the number of participants, both bringing their own challenges and different challenges. And so that's why I'm really wanting us to hone in on which of those questions are most critical, most actionable, most, that we can get the most information from, and that, would not require as much discussion, because discussion, there can be room for some, but if the majority of our question requires discussion and everybody's feedback, and let me consider that and give you what I think now that I heard your perspective, it's going to be very hard to get to all the questions.
That's very helpful. And one of the things that makes me think is that, what is our possibility of having breakout groups?
That's what I was thinking too. I know Teams does not provide it, but I do have a plug, and I may be able to get us Office. That's not what it's called. It's called Zoom for Government. So there's a very good chance I could get us on Zoom for Government that allows breakout sessions.
Well,
do we
can use my Zoom. I have one, if that helps. That's
what I was going to suggest. Is there a reason why I have to do it on a government?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, there's higher security, especially if we believe confidential information will be divulged. But if we're not concerned about that, then I would guess not. I don't know. I haven't talked to our IT specialist or anything like that. But Yeah, I see that it happening, especially if, Tony, somewhat you are the organizer thereof, and we are more of a participant. So it's not necessarily, it's all in how you look at it.
Yeah.
I won't say spin it. It's all in how you look at it.
Well, I think this is a very useful conversation, which makes me very nervous about the meeting tomorrow, because we haven't talked about breakout groups, and I have 15 minutes tomorrow morning before the meeting with my colleagues who set up this meeting, and oh my God, well, that's another story. But I think that if we took these questions and, as you suggest, send them out to people with some kind of request for input in advance, and we also break it into work groups, I think we could get somewhere with that.
Have you guys, if I could suggest, have you ever worked with SurveyMonkey?
Yeah. Well,
Maybe,
if I use Qualtrics.
yeah, I mean, whatever. But maybe if we sent everyone a link that made it easy, the questions, or here's the question, fill in the information right here. That way we could collect all that information and we have it in one place. Just instead of having everyone send 5 different, or the 12 people sending 12 different emails back to you, trying to manage all that. And like SurveyMonkey would be able to organize that. You would have it in one place. Here are the answers to number 1. Here are the answers to number 2.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a reasonable idea, which, makes this challenging, but I think we need to take those questions and organize them in some way.
We do. We do. And one way I suggest to organize them, not only in priority, because just in case we run out of time, we want to make sure we get those really critical prioritized questions answered first.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I would challenge us to think about, even though, like I gave that answer or that option, the need is 30% and we reach 1%. Like,
right.
Have an idea of a possible answer. It doesn't have to be accurate. And then ask yourself, now that I know this, what can I do with this information? And that will help us to determine how important that question is, or if we should rephrase it, if that makes sense.
Well, how about for a start, if we took these questions and reorganized them in terms of priority?
Yeah.
But also try to cluster them.
Yes, okay. Right. So I would put, how do families learn about your program, as that would be like my first question. And then from that, which is, C.
No, I see, yeah.
I would make C A. And then under that would be, what challenges do you have reaching these families? How well are you reaching those families? And they all kind of go together. Not your capacity. I think that's, well, possibly. Ability to expand and capacity, I would join those two together. So
how's that?
That works.
Okay.
We got the diversity. Could we document improvements in reach and outcome? What do we mean by this? I'm not sure what we mean by this.
Well, actually, I'm not sure either, but let me back up and say that, to me, the ultimate questions are you reaching the families, and are the outcomes beneficial?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's okay.
So maybe the heading would be reach and outcome, but in some ways that, what challenges you have in reaching families, how well are you reaching families is already there. So maybe what it should be is outcomes. How well are you able to document outcomes?
I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. Yeah, let's get to the crux of it, to the core, because I think what you're asking is like, do they have to turn people away? Are there families that want their services, that they would love to help, they fit the criteria, we just are full, there's no more room in the inn?
I think that goes.
And is that what you're asking, or are you asking them? Go ahead and type that. I don't want to talk.
Well, no, so repeat what you were saying. The first
what
part.
I was saying was, how well are you able to?
Are you having to turn families away?
Yeah, are you basically are you able to meet your community's needs? And what we mean by that is, do you have to turn families away? They could answer that a lot easier than they could answer, because you were talking about you need an epidemiologist to know the number, the percentage of ACEs, kids with ACEs in your community. And it would be a guess on a guess on a guess, would be my guess. So.
I cannot spell communities. I think that what you're going to find is that the way they go about reaching families is, to a great extent, they contact families who have some problem. And they come in contact with some social agency that, recognizes that problem and then refers them for a family intervention. Well, so there may be many families that need help, but they're not seeking it.
Right.
So,
right.
Okay, so we've sort of organized this a little better. What about the training and support?
Okay. And I'm still on the fence about what we would get from how well are you reaching families in need. I'm not sure they know that, even if we define need.
Well, I
beyond turning people away, and that would be an indicator that I'm not meeting the need. But outside of that, I don't know how they know how well they're. I mean, it could be a, subject matter expert, best guess.
Well, I don't want to not ask that question for some reason. I think that probably the most persuasive thing we have in this whole thing is we reach 1% of the families in need, and there are 30% of the families that are in need. That's the, so.
Could it be that question is going to be different for the people in this group?
I would imagine it's going to be different from every organization.
Well, the family researchers, are doing research. They're reaching families. They're helping different communities adopt their programs and so on. But I'll bet they don't have a clue about how many families could benefit. Somebody like Jordan Robinson probably has the clue. Probably Karen Wheeler has a clue, and maybe the OPEC has a clue. But I think we want to walk around inside of those issues, I think.
Okay.
So Now what? I hate it when people watch my type. Okay, so what about these down here?
Well, I have question. I'm so sorry, guys, about one BI, because that feels like 3 questions.
This
So
one?
your B, the subheading under B. So we
Okay.
have what's your capacity? That's numbers. We got room for 8, and we have 8. Connect, meaning I'm reading that more as rapport. They're able to,
Yeah.
you know, and engage.
Engage.
Right. So those are different, almost 3 different things.
I see your point. There's some redundancy
and the other
with
one,
A.
I think
this.
one is qualitative. One is quantitative, your capacity to reach, that's numbers.
Yeah.
The other is qualitative, how well that reaching out is or is not. And it, you know, it would be a self-report of, you know, how well each person thinks.
Well, but they're going to give us the Miss America answer for that,
exactly.
Right?
That's I didn't want to say that. So then we have to
Yeah.
ask ourselves, do we want to ask it? Do we want to spend time on it?
No,
Give it that.
All right, how would it goes? I didn't know if you know what I meant by the Miss America answer, but
Okay. Okay, so that's it for my questions so far. I'm sorry I keep interrupting, guys. I'm gonna let you guys talk.
well, we got E through H. We want to ask about this. Reimbursement, school involvement. I think those are, I don't know, I guess I'm a little inclined to say this is a good first round, but you've raised issues about the use of breakout rooms, the use of a survey in advance. My experience is that, you know, a group like this, it'll take a month to get them together at best. So we'll have plenty of time to refine this.
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of good ideas here.
Okay.
And in fact, you know, if I thought, what would be the outline of our recommendations? Well, the first thing would be the need of families, you know, Oregon families, you know, general information about the challenges of families that lead to substance use and related problems, the efficacy of interventions that can prevent those problems. So those would be, in my view, sort of the opening of a document on recommendations. And then it would turn to what is the situation in Oregon? And so we would get into some sort of estimate of the number of families that are in need in Oregon and an estimate of the number of families being reached. And I mean, you can probably get the numbers being reached if we can get reports from all of the different entities. But of course, you know, in a proper system, every family that got services would go into a database, even if it's completely de-identified, that would allow us to know how many families are being reached and possibly something about the problems that the families are having.
Mm-hmm.
But we're a long way from that in this state and probably most states, but we're further behind, I think, than a lot of states. I just ran into somebody who's in charge of mental health prevention in the state of New York. You know, here we are, little old, you know, there are more people in New York City than there are in Oregon. But she's going to share with me what they're doing in the way of prevention. So anyway, so where are we at?
Well, I appreciate this being a work group, we are getting some work done. You know, we are actively updating and changing and discussing the questions that will be asked. So I truly appreciate that. That being said, I still have a few questions. Specifically about reimbursement, is that in relation to training, or is that how they are paid out for providing all services?
Well, okay, so how about if we made this workforce? Training, pay.
But that may not have been your, you know, reimbursement could have meant, you know, how they are.
Well, it's you know, like Don Mazziotti would certainly raise, you know, how much of this is paid for by health insurance? How much are employee assistance programs providing help? And you know, what are the mechanisms that are funding this? Because I think the state is going to tell us what funds, state funds and federal funds flow to counties for helping families, but those are not the only ones. So we need to ask more about that.
Mm-hmm. And and it being so important, funding may be its own category, such as workforce. And I would also put it closer to the top. What do you guys think?
You want to,
yes, maybe there, funding.
Here?
Mm-hmm.
Here?
Yes.
So how are they funded? How are the individual organizations funded? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. But reimbursement then is the workforce. Are they getting paid enough? The answer being almost certainly not.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
I would reword it because we may not remember that's because when I think of reimbursement, I don't think of pay, but yeah.
You think of it more as
competitive pay, or I
yeah.
don't know, something like that. Are we competing with Target for employees? Kind of question.
Right.
Unfortunately, sometimes
that's about where we stand.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I gotta. So my first order of business, Tori, if I compose I got to do some rounds on the invitation in light of this discussion. Mm-hmm. But if I compose that, would you be able to send it to this list? And in the process, we'd have a group list of all the people that are invited to this that we could all have?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay. And then could you, and you said you'd handle the scheduling of this when that ugly question comes up?
With the assistance of Heather, she knows how to do the.
Good, good. Okay.
Yeah, the survey thing, so yeah.
Okay. Well, I will try and get you that invitation and the complete list of people, possibly not with all of their email addresses, but most of them. Okay. And I'll try and get you that in the next couple of days.
Awesome.
Yep, I have Steve. I'm going to call Steve Allen's office again, try to get his email.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Tell him that Tony Biglin wants you to respond.
Oh, I am going to name drop.
Oh, good, good.
Well, guys, we are at time. I appreciate this lively discussion. I'm excited to see we are making some headway in this very important meeting. We want to make sure that we have our ducks in a row and that we respect the time of the people who are joining us so that we can get the best from these beautiful minds. So thank you guys.
Thank you. All right.
Good
All
meeting.
right.
Have a
Be
good night.
well.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.